Infernal blessings. We are back with another video. Before I begin, as usual, adjust this real quick. Quick announcements for those interested in signing up for any of the classes that I offer. As I said before, I have a bunch of ongoing series of different classes covering a wide variety of occult and left-hand path topics, such as ancient Egyptian vampiric class. We also have the Luciferian Magic and Self-Mastery class, which is a great class. These are all ongoing series with multiple classes and counting in them. The Shadow Work class, which we're 18 deep in counting. The Sith classes. The Kundalini Meditation and Yoga Awakening class. The Esoterical Occult Bible Study class, the Eastern Occult Left-Hand Path class. I mean, the list goes on and on. And I cover a bunch of topics. So the best way, when people always reaching out, how do I sign up for your classes? What kind of classes do you offer? You need to go to the official Primordial Chaos Patreon page located at patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. That's patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. And Tier 3. Tier 3 gives you access to the 3 private classes I do every month on Patreon for Patreon members only, and it also gives you access to the group ritual that we do at the end of the month. I do have mentorship tiers also on the Patreon page. The Red Magus tier, which is Tier 5, you can take a look at. But again, I make it crystal clear, if you're gonna sign up for a mentorship program with me, it's an investment in time. It's not just about the money. It's the time, the effort, the energy, and being able to put in the work. The mentorship tiers are just really for those people that want to take it up a notch and really further their studies. And I work with you side by side to assist you in that. Not for me to show you my perspective on magic and spirituality, that you need to see it in that context. That's not what the mentorship program is about. It's for me to help you develop your vision and your path. So the mentorship tiers, along with Tier 3, gives you access to all the classes. Check it out. Patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. And Tier 3 is the tier you want to go ahead and sign up for and join. Also, if you're interested in a spiritual reading or a spiritual consultation, I offer various different types of readings, telepathic demonic readings, Santa Muerte readings, deity readings to see what demons, spirits, gods, and goddesses walk with you, shadow work readings to help you really uncover the shadow self and deal with those things you've been suppressing, things you need to really work on and master. That would be a great thing to do, a shadow work reading to see what's going on and working and uncovering the shadow, the hidden self. For a full list of readings and how to book a reading or a consultation, shoot me an email at khnum19@gmail.com to speed up the process and lessen the back and forth, including your email, the days and times you're available, and the time zone you live in. Okay, I have to say this all the time. As I said many times before, I deal with people in every time zone within the United States, and I deal with clients outside of the United States, overseas, Europe, Africa, you name it. So, as sometimes it can get a bit challenging, when you're booking readings as far as dates and space. And so put that information in there. It speeds up the process. Also, the 6th annual Journey of the Black Adept Conference is in full effect. You can sign up and register for that right now. It is a 4-day event that takes place from October 19th to the 22nd in Hollywood, Florida. As I said, it's close to the airport, Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport, minutes from the airport. B&Bs, hotels, restaurants, minutes from the beach. It's in a great location. That will take place again October 19th to October 22nd at Cultural Expressions in Hollywood, Florida. The event kicks off on Thursday the 19th of October with a meet and greet. You know what a meet and greet is? Just we meet and greet each other, kick it, get to know each other, get that out of the way. Then we get to work Following morning, 9 a.m. Friday, from 9 to 4, classes, workshops, speakers, and presenters. Then we come back on Friday evening around 7:30, 8-ish. We do our group ritual, followed by a group dinner, some socializing and hanging out. Saturday, pretty much the same schedule, 9 to 4. Come back in the evening, outdoor working, and that'll take place around the same time, followed by a group dinner and some socializing and hanging out. And then on the 22nd of October, Sunday, we close the event out. I'll be doing a Q&A, question and answer session from noon to 4 p.m., and that closes the event out. You could also attend virtually, which gives you access to the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday classes and workshops and presentations. If you're interested in attending in person or virtually, shoot me an email, khnum19@gmail.com. That's the 6th annual Journey of the Black Adept Conference right here in Hollywood, Florida. 6 years and counting. This is a tradition, an occult tradition that we're going to keep going. So hopefully we see some new people that have never been. Shoot me an email and I'll send you that info. And last but not least, remember all this new content is being uploaded also to the Primordial Chaos podcast, which is available on Spotify, and it's also available on every major pretty much podcast platform out there. The direct link to the podcast, in addition to my contact email address, the direct link to the Patreon page to sign up for classes is right in the description box of this video, along with the other social media sites, which I always forget to say this. Also, the link to the Primordial Chaos Facebook page, which is Primordial Chaos, 2 words, at Facebook, and the Instagram page at Primordial Chaos 9. When I do live YouTube videos, I also stream it to those Instagram and Facebook pages simultaneously with the YouTube. Only when I'm doing a live, not a recording. I do also put these videos on the Primordial Chaos Facebook page, the ones that I record. All right, just to give that information, put that out there. All right. So this question comes up sometimes, and somebody recently that reached out, you know, as I've done some of these tutorial videos, sometimes I incorporate an email that I received, or somebody said something and had a question, right? So somebody had asked, what is Egyptian Heka? And what is its relationship to the occult and left-hand path? And how does that differ from somebody to say that studies Kemetic studies or Kemet or Egypt? And I'm going to address that word and a few things. There is a difference, and I just want to make that clear. Okay. When you get into Egyptian Heka, and again, if you're thinking in your mind, is there a connection also with that, with what we call ancient Egyptian vampirism? Yes, there is, and I'll explain to you. Okay. When you're dealing with Egyptian Heka, Heka is the term you will see in the Coming Forth by Day, some of the Egyptian texts when it's in reference to magic, okay? When you're reading the Coming Forth by Day, it's basically a book of spells and magic. Some people have turned it into some type of Bible, like an Egyptian form of a Bible, and it's not. It's a book of connotations, spells, sorcery, and a lot of hidden wisdom and mystery, okay? Now, the difference of what we do on the occult or the left-hand path, or say somebody who's just studies Egypt, the thing that always I reflected on when I came into the occult and left-hand path, how come this aspect of Egypt nobody really talks about? Ancient Egypt is rich in magic, sorcery, and all of these higher spiritual powers, but it just seems like there's a lot of back and forth dialogue over historical data, this, that, and the other, which to me becomes a bit religious. Well, let's address a few terms and terminologies and words, okay? First of all, those are incorrect names for this place that we're calling Egypt. Kemet is not the right word, neither is Egypt. Let's just establish that. First, where do the meaning of these words come from? Okay? First, let's take the word Kemet. And you'll hear many different not too many, but you'll hear definitions like this. So the word Kemet or Kemet means land of the blacks. Yes, the problem with calling it Kemet is also you're confessing at the same time you're still indoctrinated with religious philosophy. Because yes, the word Kemet or Kem or Cham goes back to the prophet Ham in the Bible, who was Noah's son. And the word Kem or Cham does mean black. So therefore we get the term land of the blacks, okay? Which is a term that comes way later after the fact. Okay, so its correct name isn't Kemet. Then you get a term that's even more modern and new, which everybody call it today, which they refer to it as Egypt, which comes from the Greek word Egyptos or Egyptus. And Egyptos or Egypt simply means burnt, right? And the reason why it was given that term, when the Greeks and the Indo-Aryan invaders came into Egypt, the sun burnt their face and their skin, because they were a mixture of Indo-Europeans and other ethnicities. They weren't the true Nubians or Africans that were the original inhabitants of what we call in Egypt today. So this is a term that comes from the last 46 Hyksos dynasties, which was the Greek Indo-Aryan invasions. So Egypt is not the correct name, okay? So the question is, what is the correct name of this place they're calling Egypt today? We could take it a step even further. Africa is not the correct term for what they call the continent of Africa today. That too comes from a Greek Latin word Afrik, to separate. These were all colonizers who gave these titles and these names. Just like when you go to the Caribbean and you look at Puerto Rico, it means rich port. That's not really has anything to do with the inhabitants or the people from that place. We know when you look at a lot of those people, the Caribs and the Arawaks and the people of the Caribbean, the Tainos, right, who have a large direct link to the island we call Puerto Rico, etc., you will find these are their direct roots, not Puerto Rican, Dominican, Colombian. I'm just using that as an analogy. It's the same thing. So these were titles that colonizers gave these places, right? Then someone's saying, isn't it Alkebulan? There was portions, not the whole continent was never referred to as Alkebulan, but there was portions in the northeast part of the continent, in the north, that's an older title. But then you can go back to terms like Tahmare or Tahmeri, which is earth, land of earth, sun, water, different terms when you take it back into different languages, right? And then you go even further, you get Nubia back to Nuba, N-U-B-A, which is taking you now more closer back. But again, long story short, these are all titles. But my main thing of pointing all that is I wouldn't use the two most modern, Egypt and Kemet, because those are probably, my whole point in saying all that is that those are the two newest or most recent modern titles referred to as Egypt. It's important to know that because it identifies or connects with a specific period of people. Okay? So when you're studying Kemet as opposed to just general on the surface, or opposed to as we study Egyptian Heka on the left-hand path, it's totally different. And let me give you an example. When you look into Egyptian Heka, for an example, and what we're calling Egyptian Heka, I should say, okay? There's a concept that we work with called the triad of light and darkness, right? And the triad of light is represented of three Egyptian deities: Usir or Osiris, Aset, also known as Isis, and Heru, also known as Horus. This represents your triad of light. And I'm going to explain a little bit. Then you have your triad of darkness, which the three deities that represent the triad of darkness. You have Set, Seth, Sotuk. You have Anpu, also known as Anubis. And you have Sekhmet, who represent the triad of darkness. When in Egyptian Heka, because the whole purpose of somebody who was on the occult and the left-hand path working with the concept of Egyptian and Heka, you're working with the forces of light and darkness. And you're working with searching for you as an adept, a practitioner, a magician, the right formula of that light and darkness that you need to master yourself, which really is the embodiment of the adversary, whether you're saying that in the form of Set, Satuk, Lucifer, Satan, Shaitani, Bliss. These are just different masks of the adversary, because the adversary embodies light and darkness simultaneously. That's the purpose of Egyptian Heka. So the mainstream Kemetic practitioner would look at some of that as negative or evil. Oh, you're working with Set. You're talking about darkness, sorcery, and magic. But again, is not Egypt enshrined in magic and sorcery? I mean, whether you go to the mythos of the Bible or just into the records of ancient Egypt, the pharaohs were great magicians. Okay? They knew the sacred sciences to levitate, to heal, perform magic, sorcery. Why are we acting like this don't exist? Yeah, I'm not saying people like these people are going to deny it, but it's not drawn out. Let's talk about that power of Egypt. Just talking about how great you were and linking yourself to a specific dynasty, period, or lineage. I mean, what's that going to really do? Other than give you some pride where you can poke your chest out. Let's talk about tapping into the power and the magic and the glory. And I'm just going to use Egypt because that's what everybody knows about, of ancient Egypt. Okay? So Egyptian Heka is about harmonizing the forces of light and darkness. And the focal points of the triad of light and darkness. Now, you work with all of the ancient Egyptian deities, but you go in deeper. There's different approaches, perspectives, and methods that you work with them, but it's all centered around the concept and harmony of obtaining light and darkness. Okay? When you do most of your ritual work in Egyptian Heka, you open your ritual work with a practice called I always talk about this. Casting the Hermetic, well, I don't always talk about it when I talk about Egyptian Heka. There's a practice called casting the Hermetic Circle. Okay? And if you are a practitioner of Egyptian Heka, you probably know what that is. If you're not, let me explain. You are basically casting an 8-pointed star of chaos. And here's a foundational understanding of what real Egyptian Heka represents. So when you cast in the Hermetic Circle in Egyptian Heka, you are casting it from north, south, east, and the points in between, which is 8 total different points. And in that casting the circle, you are invoking the triad of light and darkness that I just mentioned specifically. So you are invoking all the 8-pointed star, which represents chaos, and all the chaotic energy that resides in chaos, which is the embodiment of light and darkness in its totality. So when you're casting the Hermetic Circle and casting the 8-pointed star of chaos, you are drawing all this primordial, prime chaotic energy, which a real black magician, black adept, occultist truly understands and knows it's mandatory that you need all of these forces of energy. It's not about not using them, banishing them, getting rid of them. It's being wise enough to know what kind of spiritual working are you doing and what kind of forces or energy do you need to draw upon to carry out that work. Because sometimes you need destructive, dark magic and dark sorcery and energy to carry out a working. Sometimes you need more healing or tranquil or lighter, rejuvenating healing forces. I'm just giving you an example. So it's your job to be very wise and educated as a magician and practitioner. What kind of energy are you tapping into? But the point being is, contained within that 8-pointed star of chaos, invoking that triad of light and darkness, all of that exists. So that's why I've said before in previous videos, I don't teach anybody banishing, because banishing to me is just not practical. And I'm not trying to, look, if you do it, don't take it personal. Maybe or whatever, you've convinced yourself in your mind, maybe it works for you. I just don't encourage it, teach it for the reasons that I'm explaining now. Okay? We draw from all of that energy and power, and that's what makes Egyptian Heka totally different from somebody who just studies mainstream Egyptology or Kemetic studies. Okay, we are tapping into the forces of light and darkness via the triad of light and darkness, and Set being at the top of that. As we know, Set is another mask or form of the adversary, and one of the most powerful. Not because, but isn't Set the god of chaos and destruction, the god of desert and storms, right? Why would somebody hold him in high esteem? Why would you want to invoke and connect with the deity of chaos and destruction? But as I've said before, and I'm going to say it again, but people forget to follow it up with the most important thing. But he's the one that makes order out of that chaos and destruction. You got it wrong. He doesn't intentionally just bring chaos and destruction to you. He brings out everything to the surface that you need to face, to master, whatever challenges you need to overcome, whatever obstacles and blockages you are avoiding. And when that comes up, it can definitely come in a very chaotic fashion, a very destructive, intense fashion. So therefore, that title is attributed to him, the god of chaos, destruction, and storms. But he also makes order out of that chaos and destruction. The only one that was able to contain a pep. And again, the problem when talking about a topic like this, I can get so sidetracked in the other topics. So I'm not going to get into the whole pep Set thing. Maybe I'll do a video on that by itself, just on that. I want to just stay focused on the topic. As again, I want to keep these tutorials, 20 to 30 minutes or so focused on the topic. But I'll get into that another time. So these are the aspects that makes what we call Egyptian Heka, which is an occult left-hand path practice. The mainstream Egyptologist or the mainstream Kemetic practitioner, studier, researcher is not really going to utilize it in this shape, form, or fashion. Okay? Now, myself, I've always had, even going years back, even before being on the occult or the left-hand path, I always had a deep love in my heart and always was fascinated and amazed by Egypt, even as a young kid. Okay? So I have always had an interest, and when I look back on it today, now I know why. Now then I didn't. It was like a magnet. I would see the pyramids, the dress and the culture of Egypt. I was always fascinated by the animal deific mask that a lot of the deities wore. There was just so many things of ancient Egypt that caught my attention. And there was a period during the, I call it the Hotep years, where I was heavy into that. That was a big part of my spiritual growth, going back to the mid to late 90s, early mid 90s, around that time, etc. Mid to late 90-ish. It was a big part of my growth, one of the schools and the paths that I walked to get to where I'm at now. But I appreciate it even more now, knowing what I know now. See, as I said, one thing that's beautiful about this path when you're doing shadow work, and part of shadow work is going back, understanding whether you came through religious schools of thought or other systems, you now have a different filter to look at those schools. Like I said, whether it's the 5% nation, like I look at the 120 lessons in a more occult perspective now, and it's beautiful. I know the mainstream practitioner and members of these paths ain't going to see it the way I see it, but I'm not in it for that. And I say that with all due respect. But it's like you can go back to look at previous systems you came through, and you're seeing it through a different lens. You have a different view of it. And it's a beautiful thing. That's part of shadow work. That's called deconstructing and reconstruction process of your past spiritual systems. Let me give you an example. One thing I tell people to do, like for an example, a few years back, when one of my teachers or elders in one of the schools I was going through on the occult had me do a ritual. Said, take one of the mainstream practices that you came up with and being raised in Catholicism and rewrite it from an occult perspective. This is a form of shadow work, of deconstruction and reconstruction. So I said, well, you know what? The most well-known rite of the Catholic Church is the Catholic Mass. So I rewrote the whole Catholic Mass. And how I did it was, instead of wherever it made reference to God or Jesus, I might have inserted Lucifer or Satan. I turned the whole Eucharistic prayers and the offerings of the bread and wine into more focusing on the adversary, etc., just to give you a quick rundown. And it was a very deprogramming and reprogramming experience, right? I'm just to give you an example of how that works, just so it helps you better understand, okay? But I've always had that appreciation for ancient Egypt. And I think I mentioned in a previous video, and again, it's clear now today, wasn't then. I was always drawn to Set. As I said, it always seems like on the down low when we were younger, we always felt, and we always sided with and always empathized or even sympathized with the villain. And even though in those lesser schools of thought that Set was always villainized, I always felt I was drawn to the energy of Set. And again, I didn't know that back then, what I know now, but now I know why. And you're going to find out as you really start to grow on this path, you're going to reflect back to a lot of things that happened to you in your life, going back even sometimes to the point when you were a very small and young child, and you're going to go, oh, that's what that is. Because I'm going to tell you this, a lot of these spirits, demons, gods, and goddesses have been walking with you even before you made the declaration to come on this path. You just didn't know it. Because they all reside within your psyche, because they are energy. When we use this term energy, they are beings of light and energy, intellect and energy. Okay? And they all exist. The awareness of them all exists within the psyche of your subconscious mind. Doesn't matter. Look, you can get into debate. Are they literal? Are they real? Do they manifest? Yes, they manifest as you tap into them in the psyche of your subconscious mind. I gotta say that because people go, well, I'm confused. Is everything mental or is it not mental? Because I've had what you are interpreting external experiences. Yes, that's very real to you. But understand, when you really get to it at the end of the day, you are at the root cause of why that happened, that manifestation of that experience, when you really break it down. So I'm trying to get you to see deity through the lens, not of spookism. I'm trying to get you to see deity through the lens that it resides and exists within you. This is why I say you walk with the deity and the deities walk with you. You walk with them side by side so you can embody the very essence and become what they represent. Not worship them, not bow down and approach them in any form of monotheistic prayer like they do in religion. That's why I'm saying that. And Egyptian Heka is about tapping into the divine. Now, the one thing that's beautiful about Egyptian Heka, there is deeply rooted in it the concept of what we call the personal daemon, the true and higher self. They refer to it in Egyptian Heka and Hermeticism as the agatho-daemon. Right? It's the same thing. If you're calling it the agatho-daemon, the personal daemon, or the guardian angel in even lesser systems, it's the same thing. And Egyptian Heka's foundational practice, and this is the meat of what I'm getting ready to tell you, is about unlocking the power of the personal daemon within. Getting the higher self, connecting with the true and real higher self, and getting that to be the aspect that guides you on your journey. Okay? That's what this path is really all about. Because in Egyptian Heka work, there's a strong focus on the personal daemon, or the agatho-daemon, which connects to the activation of the Ka and the Ba, the spirit and the soul. Because the spirit and the soul are the very essence of your personal daemon. Okay? And this is why when you look at the Ka, the Ba, the Ib, the Ren, all these concepts in ancient Egypt are really connecting to your true and higher self. Okay? And again, here we find ourselves again with Set at the head of that. So the question we also should be asking ourselves, who and what really is Set? What does Set really represent? And it's definitely not this spooky ass religious concept of evil and the devil. Okay? Because we totally reject that religious explanation and interpretation of what they call in religion the devil. It's comical. It's a joke. Okay? So these are the key, and again, I can go on, as you know, I can go on and on and on, but I'm trying to give you a concrete foundational understanding. So when you come across what somebody's calling Egyptian Heka, as opposed to, is that somebody who studies Egyptology? Yes, but it's deeper than that. Because, of course, to practice Egyptian Heka, you must know history of ancient Egypt, the symbols, and all of the implements that's connected to the ancient Egyptian culture. You must be very knowledgeable of the different texts of ancient Egypt, like the pyramid text, the Book of Gates, the Coming Forth by Day. You must have knowledge of all that. And as I said, the Coming Forth by Day, or what they call the ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead, is a book of sorcery and magic. And I don't know why nobody talks about it on that level. Yeah, well, you know, and there's the negative confessions that's where they grafted the 10 Commandments. Yeah, okay, that's cool. But let's go a little bit deeper than that. It gets into a lot more things than that. And when you're reading the Coming Forth by Day and you see the spells in there, and there's blanks there, that's where you're supposed to insert certain names. It's a magical book, people. Look at it correctly. Understand it. But again, it's not looked at in that light or that regard. I sometimes feel, I'm not saying all, it's almost like people look at it as some biblical text. Okay? As I said in the beginning of the video. And that's not what it is at all. Trust me when I tell you that's not what it is. So yes, you must have a working of all of those aspects to work with Egypt. Now, the last thing I want to say before I wrap the video up, because again, there could be more. And just like it has a very darker, intense side when you get into Egyptian vampirism. Now we're going back to, which traces its roots and origins back to Pharaoh Unas of the 4th dynasty. And I'll do a video on that in itself. So yes, because I know I've received emails about that and people ask questions about that in class. Is it the same thing? It's a higher school. Because now when you get into ancient Egyptian vampirism, you're dealing with the arts of astral traveling, meditation. You're dealing with more darker, for lack of a better words, and I got to be careful how I use that word, darker workings of sorcery, magic, and witchcraft. You're using the power of, invoking different spirits, gods and goddesses and demons. There's levels to it. Again, there's different levels to it. But when you start to transition in some of the teachings of ancient Egyptian vampires, this higher side, working with the chakras, raising the Kundalini energy, meditation, all of these things, the higher sciences, not just the dark sorceress aspect, but a lot of these higher spiritual sciences, working with the astral planes and the astral realms, opening up these gates. Look, all I can say is this, as I am now approaching close to my destination. I could talk a lot more about this. It's a very powerful path. And I find some people, it really challenges the power and the development of your mind. You got to have powerful visualization skills, mental willpower, and fortitude to really master the path of Egyptian Heka. And last thing I'm going to say is I do have a mentorship tier on Patreon for Egyptian Heka. Okay, where that tier focuses on showing the practitioner how to work Egyptian Heka effectively. So if you are interested in that, again, it's a commitment. I don't want to waste your time. Please don't waste my time. Where I show you And Egyptian Heka has a special place in my heart. It's, as I said earlier, it's one of my foundational paths, even in the lesser mysteries. Okay? So having said that, we'll continue this maybe in a further discussion. That's going to wrap up this video. Again, if you need to reach out to me, khnum19@gmail.com. If you need to contact me for a spiritual reading, if you need information on how to register and sign up for the 6th annual Journey of the Black Adept Conference, shoot me an email there. The link to the podcast, the link to the Patreon page to sign up for classes or the mentorship tier, my contact email address, all that is in the description box of this video you are currently watching now. All right? Having said that, that's going to wrap it up. This is your boy, the B, the A, the N, the I, the T, the I, signing out. Infernal blessings.